Okay guys, with this tutorial we are going to create a texture for my ground plane. I haven't sculpted it yet. I can sculpt it before or after. I think maybe I'll wait to get the texture on there before I start sculpting. Either way, all I know is I'm going to create some little mounds around in different places, and again try to break up the perfectly straight lines of the fence and the house, and maybe a little bit where I have my path and sidewalk. But again, we'll deal with that a little bit later. So what I want to do is I want to create a texture that we can slap onto this ground plane and have it perfectly fit the rectangle that I have. So to do that, little trick, I'm going to go into wireframe mode, and I'm going to go to my top view camera, and I'm going to zoom out so I can see all of the outside edges of that plane. And then we're going to use the old print screen trick on your keyboard. Boom, I just printed my screen. And I'm going to go into Photoshop where I already have the grass texture and a dirt texture open. So now I'm just going to go File, New, make sure I'm on Clipboard, Create, and then Control V to paste. And then I'm going to zoom into that area and get my marquee tool and select a little bit outside and get it pretty close, but a little bit outside of that area. And voila, then once I have it selected with my rectangular marquee tool, I'm going to go to Image Crop and deselect. I'm just going to double check the image size of it. It's not going to be very big, which could be a problem. Let's see, let's just look at it by pixels. 536 by 695. For such a big area in our scene, that's not very big. So I'm going to bump it up quite a bit, because if we bump it up quite a bit, we'll still be able to see our edges, but it'll give us some more room to work, give us some more pixels to paint with. Now I'm going to go get my grass base. Remember, this is seamless, so if I select all, Control A, there we go, copy, and bring it over to my house and paste, it's pretty big. We don't want this sort of zoomed in image of grass to be that big, right? I mean, grass is pretty small, so we got to figure out a way to make this repeat the pattern over and over again. Sometimes it's dangerous to just scale it down and then duplicate and move them around. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get that thing out of there, and I'm going to go here, and I'm going to repeat this texture multiple times before bringing it into my screenshotted house layer. So I'm going to deselect this, and I'm going to hit Control J to duplicate just to get a free floating layer above it. And I'm going to go to Image, Canvas Size, and it looks like, I don't know, we could probably get away with making this 6 times its original size. So I'm just, again, making the canvas size 6 times as the original size. And I'm going to bump it down to the right and down, click OK. And we'll see we have a very large texture space. So again, I'm going to duplicate, Control J, that layer, get my move tool. I'm going to move it over, making sure that we snap this pixel for pixel. And it's pretty sensitive, so let's make sure, there we go. Boom, boom, yep, right there. And then once again, Control J, and this could take some time, so I'm going to try to do it quickly, show you maybe a few shortcuts. Control J, move it over, Control J, move it over. How many more do we have? 1, good. Control J, move it over, there we go. Now, hide this just so I can see what we have. Okay, so we have all of these. So I'm going to merge all of these together. Shift select all of them. Now we're going to go to Merge Layers. Now we have one nice row of them. I can bring this back if we want. Now we're going to Control J to duplicate that. Zoom way in to make sure it bumps up perfectly. And then guess what? We can merge that down. Control E will merge a layer down, so I'm hitting Control E and then Control J to merge that as well. Now we can work pretty quickly. I think that snapped into place. I'm going to Control J again because I know I only need one more, so why go to the trouble of merging one? Now I have this big space, and I'm going to keep this as my base grass, so I'm going to flatten the whole thing. And now we're going to select the whole thing, Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and we're going to paste this over the top of the printed screen, and I'm going to scale it down until we get an area where it fits. This doesn't have to be perfect, so I'm just going to move it around in here, and that's good enough. Now I can go to anything I want. I can actually close this and not save it if I want to be brave. And we can see that I have my printed screen underneath. We can move this up above and do like a multiply, which is going to make it pretty dark. We could take the opacity way down so we can see through it a little bit. What I'm looking for are my border edges, right? In fact, maybe we could just hide this, leave this the way it is, and I could grab some guides so I can tell where my fence is. There's my fence there. Not worried about the sidewalk out front just yet. Side fence is there. Side fence is there. Back of the house is about right there. Remember, I've got an overhang, so I'm trying to get to where I can see the part of the mesh that actually touches the ground. And I'm going to go there. Now, all these areas, these border areas, I'm going to paint with a little bit of dirt, because usually grass doesn't go all the way up to the edge of things. It does a little bit, but just as a starting point, let's see if this works. I'm gonna paint over the top where I have. It's hard to see. Let's see. Oh yeah, the middle square and then the outer square. Okay, that's where I'm going to paint some dirt. So I'm going to get my stamp. It's a pretty big stamp. I may have to end up. Making this texture larger. Again, brush, stamp. And make a new layer above. Make sure my stamp is set to all layers. And I'm going to make the brush a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to start painting. As soon as I get to a certain point, I'm going to see the edge. Again, I'm wiggling back and forth. I let go, I can start over. And I'm going to take the time to do this all the way down and all the way around the border of where my fence is. I'm going to hit pause and record this because I think you get the idea. Okay, so now I've finished clone stamping the dirt all the way around the border here. I've got all these layers over here. I'm going to save this as my working PSD file in my 3D House Textures folder. I'm going to call it ground working. That should work, PSD file. And then a very easy way to get an image out of this that we can use and attach to a material in Maya is to do the old Control-Alt-Shift-E at the very top of our layers. And once I get that compilation, I can go quick export as ping, back down into 3D House, Textures. I can call this ground 01. And now going into Maya, go back, we can stay at the top, and I'm going to go to my Hypershade. This is going to be a dull material, so we're going to create a Lambert material. I'm going to call it ground, map to my color, file, folder, go find it. Easier. I cleaned up my stuff yesterday on Saturday. So here we go. Textures. What do we call it? Ground. Something or other. It's a paint file. Where did it go? Ground 01. There it is. Open. And if I just move this out of the way, I should be able to just, let's see what happens if I just drag and drop. Or I can select my ground and assign ground to it. Oh, it's a little bit off, which means it's probably a square, so let's try to project it. So I'm going to grab all of the faces, go to my planar projection, make sure keep image width height ratio is on, hit project, and let's see how we did. It's again a little bit off for whatever reason, so let's play with some UVs. I'm going to go to my top view and get my UV editor. And what do I want? Oh, you know what I should have done? It's okay. We can fix it. Scale my UVs up. Should be 1:1. See how that looks. That should be pretty close. Under my fence. So really what we wanted to do, sorry, I'm going to go back and just test this theory out. Select all my faces. There's the bell. And I'm going to project in Y. I'm going to keep image off and project. And now that should go straight to the 1:1.
Asia Evans, please report to room 107.
Stop interrupting.
Asia Evans to 107.
And that should make it pretty close to perfect. And now if I get rid of everything, I can go in there and I look. I've got dirt under my fence to a degree. I've got it around my house, and that looks pretty good. And now what I can do is I can go back into Photoshop, and I want some dirt that's sort of surrounding my walkways. So we're going to paint that on there as well, and then we're just going to replace the texture in here. So back in Photoshop, I've got that compiled image up there, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go back into my dirt, and I'm going to bring up, grab my stamp, and I'm going to sample about right there, zoom in, make sure I am on the right layer, and if I just sort of get a little bit outside of my little walkway here, and most of that's going to be covered up by the walkway. And then, let's see, we got our, I think my sidewalk goes all the way out here, and I'm going to go up here, and very quickly, I might, if I were doing this for real, I might be a little more careful. But again, we have it in a new layer, so we can always go in and erase, or we can add a mask and clean that up later. There we go. Once again, I'm going to go Control-Alt-Shift-E, right-click. Oh, we don't want that on there. Get rid of that. We don't want our wireframe on there, so I've got to hide the wireframe first. Control-Alt-Shift-E, get a clean texture up there. Quick export as ping. Overwrite, so just click Ground 01, click Save. You want to replace it? Yes. And then in Maya, it won't automatically update, so we have to go to our Hypershade, and we can click on our Textures tab, and right-click on that texture and go Reload Image File. And now we've got a little bit of dirt around the walkway, and that looks pretty good right there. And now the last thing I'm going to do basically with this texture is I don't like the monotony of all that green, beautiful green grass. I think some of it should be dry or dead. So what I'm going to do is go back to Photoshop. I'm going to delete that layer that we exported, and I'm actually going to duplicate layer 2. Before I do that, though, there's my guides are getting in my way, so I'm going to go to View Guides. Clear guides just to get rid of them, don't need them anymore. Zoom in there a little bit. But I'm going to duplicate my grass layer, and I am going to make it more yellow. So I'm going to go up to Image Adjustments. Oh, we could probably do Color Balance. Let's try a Color Balance, and we can go yellow a little bit. I'm in my midtones. If I go to my highlights, a little bit more yellow. That's good. I think that looks a little bit too vibrant for sort of yellow dead grass, so I'm going to take some saturation down. Image Adjustments to Saturation to about right there. Now what I can do is add a mask. Boom. Get my paintbrush. Make it sort of nice and big. And pretty soft. And I can just start painting masks around where I want this to change. It's not a big change. I might go and change it more in a little bit, but I'm just sort of making it patchy. Yeah, it's not quite yellow enough. So I'm just sort of jumping. This doesn't matter because it's hidden. Let's try to do a little bit more of the color change. What if we do hue saturation and change the hue a little bit? There we go. Getting it patchy. I can change my color of my brush in my mask to white, bring some of that back a little bit. You could also use a different kind of brush for this, right, to get it really broken up. But that looks pretty good. Let's do some more saturation. There we go. And then again, up top, Control-Shift-E, right-click, export as ping, overwrite ground 1, replace it, yes, back in Maya, Hypershade, go to my texture, reload image file, and there you can see we're really starting to break it up a little bit. I think my brush edge wasn't quite soft enough, but you get the idea. You can go back and forth doing this with different colors or whatever you want to help it look a little bit natural. I feel like my dirt texture is a little dark, but I'm going to leave it that way for now. Now, final quick thing, after I was satisfied with my texture, I went in and I sculpted the ground. You can see the undulations when I selected. Again, to break up those hard lines, I did it by literally a strength in my tool settings. Remember, your tool settings are up here in the hammer of 1 to 2 at the most, being careful that, especially when I went up here to my front sidewalk, the ground didn't penetrate through the sidewalk. So just a sort of a subtle push and pull. If I go to just smooth shade, you can see the work that I did with pushing and pulling just to break things up a little bit. So at the end, when we get lighting in there,
Isaiah Murphy, please
shush,
report
lady.
to the front gate.
When we get light in there, it'll
Isaiah
look
Murphy, please
even
report
better
to
than
the front
this. So
gate.
there you go.